Is it connecting? Is it working? Is the question. Is it? I didn't check. I had to check and I didn't check if it was on the proper number, I guess. Anyways, we have like 3 hours before I have to leave, so yeah. Here we are. I don't think I will probably stay 3 hours, and I don't do that usually. I don't even have a proper excuse as to why it doesn't happen, but yeah, here we are. The minimal point is here we are, and to a certain extent that is enough. I think so, so yeah. I am satisfied just with that. That's already compared to not having been here for probably as of right now, maybe 2 weeks or so. Compared to that, this is infinitely better, I guess. So yeah, that's quite a pleasure. Also, can we not have a lag? Is it a possibility? Give me a second. Are the captions the only problem that creates a lag out of nowhere? We have no captions. Okay, without any captions whatsoever, there is no lag. Why? I don't know. I might want to know too much. I don't need that much information, I guess. I don't deserve that much information. There it is. No more captions. I am tired. At at the very least for now, I am tired of trying to make it work in that sense. And seeing that yet again it lags. No thank you. Anyways, continuing. I think I think I have been pretty much spending a lot of energy trying to think about anything proper to start with. I unavoidably I have worries and whatnot that I think might be a priority to discuss, and all of that sort of stuff in general that is always there, so to speak. But I think it has been quite, in general, once again, quite hard to properly find anything with sufficient meaning, so to speak, from where you can start. It's it's surprising to see that despite there being so many necessary discussions to have, there is also so much friction between the interest of those discussions and the possibility of properly doing them in any way. It's rather disappointing, I would even say, that there is no true passion for any sort of discussion of that to begin with. It's like a proper analysis of what happens in the normality of life that doesn't let you have anything of this sort. Not because it is bad or because it is hard, I think. I think indeed it is quite a horrible lie to say, no, yeah, this is overly complex or this is unnecessarily negative and whatnot. It's not that bad, really. It's a lot simpler than what most people can even think about. And this sort of thing, in general, doesn't take that much energy. If you can minimally try, you find out that it was indeed not that hard, not that impossible for anybody, for nobody. But it seems, yeah, that something along these lines is, I will say, there is that wish to not say necessity. Nobody wishes to believe that what they have is so important. It's quite an egotistical task to say, no, yeah, this is an obligation. No, it isn't. You can do whatever you want with your own life. That's quite the point of existing. But the reality is, it's a responsibility at the very least to try and discuss anything like this. Maybe in some other reality with other means, we could justify not even trying to talk about anything of this sort. Maybe. Not today, I think so. After, as I said before, after 2 weeks or so of excuses, yeah, no, not today. Um, at the very least, for this occasion, not today. It's it's quite an obligation to finally utilize so much of the interest that anybody has collected upon themselves about different topics, different ideas, different perspectives, different pieces of information which fulfill an even better and bigger picture. It's time to utilize all of that into something that minimally is good. Not because it is, wow, it can be so, how to say it, so fulfilling. No, simply because if it happens, if it were that somebody tries to do their best in all of that, you can realize indeed it was good and it was useful from here on based on the results of what you properly try. You gained something. The problem might be realizing though what did you even gain. Certainly that's the biggest problem in general of properly measuring why something is a word by itself in the void of existence, so to speak. Most people can say or assume that what they have in their hands is somehow good and whatnot, but to give a proper reason for it is not such an easy task, I guess. So yeah, it's instead of that, instead of that very realm of things that something of this sort falls onto, to basically, it it might as well be a necessity to, at the very least, try once again, or yeah, this one I didn't say. Even if it fails, the moment in which you realize that you have a possibility and you make usage of that possibility is the moment in which, so to speak, the whole game benefits from your actions. Even if it fails, it means that the individual which was capable of observing how its own actions could have in any manner impacted and then maybe failed because there was still a lack of understanding about the proper ways in which they could try to do anything, even if it failed because of that. Just to be capable of recognize that there is something of value pursuing, doing, is already a win, so to speak. On the basis of the perception that was created on an individual level, which is now allowed to also continue because others learn by seeing what has happened before, basically nothing new. it is quite a reality in the very same term that, yeah, being capable of continuing with all of this ends up meaning unavoidably that we get the pleasure, the benefit of, you know, in the future, say, a minimal usage of our time in a meaningful way led up to something unimaginably bigger than what we could ever confront in the present. So yeah, it's the beliefs of stat, I guess, that we are going to try and act for now. So yeah, that is, I guess, an introduction somehow. If it is even something that I was going to say, if it is something that even makes sense, I I want to make a paragraph here or a particular note at the foot of the page. I think it is called. Um, Indeed, it is quite insulting. Once you can realize properly how it works, all of that, it is quite insulting to hear out of nowhere. Oh yeah, I hope that what I am trying to say is in any manner understandable. Maybe people are not that stupid, and maybe people don't have problems understanding language by itself, and maybe you don't even have the capacity to say anything surprising. So yeah, it doesn't work that way. No, no average human being comes here and says, "Yeah, you know what? I am going to create the most surprising piece of entertainment or information ever before created, and deliver that in such a way that sadly nobody will ever understand what I tried to say." It doesn't happen. It it's just part of the reality of how all of this thing of being alive works. I would even go as far as to say, if you can somehow believe that what you're trying to express is being impeded because the audience itself somehow is the problem, not you, you might as well, in a deeper level, trying to finish around here the note, you're the problem. You're somehow subjecting your audience to a twisted perception of them, which out of nowhere makes them be stupid, and they are somehow an entity which produces anything superior to the average understanding. No, it doesn't work that way. Sadly, it doesn't work that way. It's simply a desire to escape from the possibility of saying anything. And you express that in a way in which it satisfies you somehow, and you move on with your life, so to speak, believing that now that you have abandoned all of this discussion that you might have had, all of this monologue, all of this whatever it was, you have gained something, when in reality, that's always the point. If what could have been said was to any degree useful, it was an obligation to try and express that, no matter how hard it was to try and get it right. That's also part of the fun. That's also part of why something important needs to be reiterated so many times. People don't have the blessing, so to speak, of just on a first glance getting every single piece of the puzzle and understanding all that there is out a single topic. No, it doesn't happen. So yeah, that's I said before. I simply wanted to make a tiny statement on that. I had been between the million of things that I had been thinking about in this whole time. Yeah, I kept thinking about that. It's sadly it is unnecessarily insulting to say, yeah, you know what? I hope what I am saying makes sense. No, people are not stupid. Luckily enough, you live in a reality in which people, most of the time, as long as you're using common language, the same degree of understanding as you, there is no way in which people, just because you are trying to say anything quote unquote deep, might not get what you are referring to or anything like that. If now, obviously, with some caveats and whatnot, obviously, if you can't even properly develop your theory, if you don't even have the possibility of taking your time and stating what is necessary and whatnot to express on its complete range of motion what you want to, it will happen. And you then will unavoidably not have the possibility of saying to any degree that what you expressed was good. Unavoidably. That's part of part of trying anything, I guess. That you realize that yeah, maybe having rushed to the conclusions and whatnot didn't benefit anybody whatsoever. So yeah, that's once again different problem, and at this point already different enough so that it can serve as a final point on this whole tiny parenthesis, not even a real part of what I wanted to talk about today. So yeah, simply wanted to give a better, proper take on something like that. I think I said it before. I think so. I kept thinking about what I expressed before, and it was in some way wrong. I felt that when I said it, and I couldn't express it properly. So yeah, that's a rectification of a previous statement, if you wish. Anyways, why are we here today? What is even the point of all of this, so to speak? What's even there to gain from getting to pay attention, trying to pay attention, or yeah, I don't think so. That's the final level, the most hopeful one. Revisiting even ideas like that will be the highest form of compliment even. It certainly won't happen. So yeah. Um, but what's the point? What are we even trying to tell about this time around? I think so. Yeah, I have spent already since I think it was a little bit after the last stream, the last solo stream, obviously, that I found some key information when it comes to all of this human endeavor and whatnot. And I have been perplexed by all of that to a certain degree. It has been quite hard to say anything meaningful without, yeah, I think it is obvious, without breaking down in the process of trying to say something that should be incredibly obvious and something that should be as clear as day itself when it comes to observable, already quantified evidence, something that you have no need to go out of your own weigh and explore and try to measure by yourself and anything of that sort. No, 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 no. It's the pleasure of living in a world in which you're not alone. Conclusions which are given to us by people who has spent, so to speak, so much of their time properly picking up all of the pieces together and solving a puzzle that is so much bigger than what most people can even expect. So yeah, in that same sort of realm, this whole interest appears of I have been considering, I have been trying to properly, as I said before, trying to see how to start with all of this. And there is no true single particular way in which it is easy. It is in general something hard, and I sadly have to accept that it is partially hard because people are by nature bound to have problems with something that goes so much against what is part of their by default wiring in this modern world, so to speak. So yeah, it's it is already expressed. I think so, I haven't expressed properly um in words what is it that we are trying to talk about today, but either if you read finally also trying to rectify some errors of before, either on the title or here on the screen, it is shown what's even the point of here of today at the very least. So yeah, on human efforts, basically. It feels like I guess yes, sadly that's part of the loss in this sort of discussion. That it feels like something huge and whatnot. It isn't really that mysterious or anything like that. It's quite disappointing to see. Yeah, being honest. It's disappointing to see that it takes so much effort itself to try and talk out anything of this sort when literally there is no way in which a dog, for example, could even understand what we are talking about. Moving besides the fantasy of um, the virtuality in yeah, the virtuality in which most people exist. Be, Beyond that, it is obvious. Sadly, at the very least for now, there is nothing else besides the human itself which could, in any manner, make sense out of what we are talking about here. So yeah, it it isn't anything new, or it isn't anything. It shouldn't be. That's the proper way to say it. It shouldn't be anything surprising. Also, say hello to my dogs. Thank you. Um, it shouldn't be anything perplexing to try and discuss about. Oh yeah, you're a human yourself too. Wow, what a revelation. You also have a desire to understand why moving yourself to do anything might be good or necessary or important. Wow, it, it, it is quite an essential discussion to have. Wow, an statement. That's certainly that's an statement. Not something that is obvious at first glance, not something that is necessary. It's something revolutionary out of nowhere. It's it's something that the modernity has done perfectly. That out of nowhere, any kind of discussion about this in the daily life of anybody is seen as weird. A complete success, certainly. a complete achievement, so to speak, that you can't even ask yourself, your peers, those who are minimally interested also in what you are doing in the shared, so to speak, hobbies or goals, dreams, whatever it is. Why? Why even do anything of this sort? Why even bother doing anything? What's the point doing whatever? It's it's a surprising reality to find out that certainly it is leaving behind a little bit the sarcasm and whatnot. It is certainly hard and disappointing to see that you this is somehow something that isn't normal to talk about, and somehow it is something that is hard to properly navigate. No, it isn't. But yeah, I guess you can say that, and you can once again. Oh my God, I hope people understand what I am saying. No, no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It's being condescending towards the rest just because you don't truly want to try your best might as well be part of the problem, yeah. But it isn't the problem itself. It isn't in any manner the problem itself. So yeah, um, now properly starting about human efforts and whatnot, about how you might even try to perceive out of this thing that is not simply to be alive. I mean, most people, luckily enough, or well, quite obviously, on the final analysis, every single human being is alive until they are not, so to speak. Wow. What it truly means is most people, that's what I wanted to say, most people exist. They might as well not have any deeper purpose, any deeper idea as to why they are here and whatnot. And that is also something that has been accepted as something that is okay, that it is fine to not wish for anything, that it is a good thing to not believe that you yourself have any potential of working on anything at all by yourself and whatnot. So, to a certain extent, because as creatures bound by their own societies, everybody needs to justify the reactions and, in general, ways of perceiving the world of their own civilizations and whatnot. We are going to assume that it is fine and we are going to forgive, so to speak, the system which exists around yourself, which, once again, forces you to believe that it is okay to not have anything like that. And in forgiveness, also, there is the beautiful gift of, and I don't have to be part of that anymore. I, it doesn't mean that just because everybody else has a hard time seeing why even try anything. Oh yeah, you know what? Time to also not try anything at all. It is the norm that no matter how many generations before me had a hard time, I can also justify giving up. No, it doesn't work that way. But yeah, that's kind of part of the discussion, I guess. How, why, and even trying to understand whether it is even that it is necessary to exert anything minimally similar to an effort when it comes to this thing, I guess, of being alive and whatnot. That's the reality of that. It isn't in any manner something that tries to be astonishing or surprising. That's the reality. Being alive and trying to enjoy being alive, so to speak. Because also, I mean, it sadly, as I said before, it takes time to properly unravel anything like this. Something wonderful that you see is people has a hard time even accepting that there is something good in enjoying your time on things that are beyond yourself. And somehow, supposedly, people can't realize that there is something better than just to be overly selfish. Supposedly, it isn't like there has been any true effort of solving this problem, but oh yeah, the people are the problem. No, not me who has never tried to address this issue. No, no, no. Everybody else is the problem. The whole system is the problem once again. Anyways, um, that is moving too much far away from the idea. Quick rundown. Once again, refocus. What are we even trying to talk about? Efforts, human efforts, and a lot of information. I guess sadly there is no other way in which I can personally operate. I need information, and I can only give information in different ways. So yeah, it's structured around all of that and prefaced with all of those things. Something that is unavoidable to escape, I guess. But yeah, what are we even trying to talk about at this point is indeed how anybody has the possibility of trying something. That's the basis. Let's say it like that. The minimal point in which we are going to focus our attention is how anybody has the possibility of trying anything. Simple as that. No extravagant idea of, oh yeah, because the human effort is something that exists outside of the individual. And no, 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 no. Minimal unit that we can observe properly without losing our mind in the process. Whenever somebody tries something with an intent on doing so, that's what we are going to see as an effort and what we are going to accept as an effort. And that is why this tries to be minimally centered around that very same idea. Because indeed, anybody has, at the very least, as long as they do possess the very same faculties, that is also quite a given notion. Anybody who can replicate certain activities should hypothetically be capable of performing all of the actions which are encompassed in any sort of activity or field of of degree of experience, however you wish to say it. And this is important. Why? Because we're talking about, particularly in this setting, of how this can be taken into reality. Because there is something quite wonderful with this model of observation, and that is the individual itself. In the hypothetical analysis, the individual itself has the possibility of performing anything that they can realize they are capable of doing, while they have the similar tools in their hands equal to those who performed said activities in the past. And this is something that in the analysis can exist. In the reality doesn't somehow. The moment in which you try to extrapolate this into reality, you find out that despite there being so many factors already existing in the life of people, somehow persons themselves decide, so to speak. It isn't truly a decision which happens consciously in a deeper level, but quote unquote decide to give up on their dreams and find themselves always struggling with different type of tasks and whatnot, which don't constitute an impossibility for them, so to speak. anybody could potentially, highest type of example, anybody could potentially become the president of their own nation if they were to aim high enough and with enough efforts towards that goal. Yet in reality, it is not even less than 1% of the population. I think it was less than 0.00001% of the population which tries to seriously aim to that position lately, something around that range. It is an infinitesimally small number of people which find it inside of themselves the true, not capacity, because the capacity is there innately to perform said activities, the interest to perform said activities, through which they can then finally express said potential, which exists not in them just because they had that initial interest, which exists inside of anybody and which can be expressed by anybody, but which obviously requires that initial seed of interest, and which so few people can in any way channel into something of usefulness, so to speak. That is where the problem lies most of the time. That people are confronted with many different wishes and are confronted with many different aspirations, but in the process of, sadly, unavoidably, it is a long analysis which needs to be performed to properly explain everything. But it is a combination between the different social environments in which the subject find themselves to be living in, the different situations which traverse this individual, so to speak, and which modify their subjective experiences, which also unavoidably modify the way in which they see the reality and whatnot, the ways in which the individual is even capable of perceiving beyond what is just a compilation of past experiences, but rather the general worldview which is embedded inside of them, so to speak, born out of the constant efforts towards the justification of living and whatnot. Out of that, in combination, is what leads to so many problems when it comes to the final decision of might I be capable of properly performing something that by general criteria anybody could do or not? Might I utilize my time personally also in pursuing this one task or not? Something that anybody can do, but that somehow the individual finds ways of not properly seeing as a possibility for them, is a problem constructed not in the basis or in the tiniest field of something that can only be perceived by those who are in any sort of, yeah, of degree unavoidably exploring their most immediate type of wish. It is a chain of different. It, yeah, the problem here is, on one hand, there are environmental factors, unavoidably. The outside is what has shaped the individual to be what it is in the present. But here is a tiny funny problem. You can say, or it is seen as something bad to say, and it is the responsibility of the individual to realize that this very same outside doesn't really rule that much on their own particular lives. It is something that has become an absurd idea, so to speak, to say that, yeah, and no matter how hard the rest of the world is, on your concepts, on your wishes, on your dreams, as long as you can properly justify them for yourself. There shouldn't be any particular reason for you to not pursue them. It is seen as something strange. So I guess certainly it is partially also a hard discussion to have, just because, you know, you are saying something that seems to be bad, quote unquote. Uh, Once again, I already said before, you can't have normally a discussion that should be of this very same sort on the regular basis. It is seen as strange. So I guess it also makes sense that this is seen as strange to say that, yeah, indeed, as long as somebody is capable of proposing to themselves something with enough intent, they might be capable of achieving that. Wow. Surprising piece of information, I guess. Astounding discovery. The human has finally realized that it can be useful. Wow. I guess so. It needs deep observation, I guess. It isn't something that is apparent by existing in the world. It isn't something that anybody can by themselves realize the moment in which they aspire towards any kind of usefulness. It isn't in any manner something of that sort. No, it is something that obviously can only be realized by the most clever of the minds. Indeed, right? It is fine to say that and to keep perpetuating this tradition of, oh wow, yeah, we need people. Yeah, I can't by myself reach any deep conclusion. I needed to have external influences, and I needed to have something on the outside which shapes and changes and allows for a better degree of understanding on all of this stuff. Myself does not possess the capacity to do anything like that, so I might as well continue in a different path, I guess. So it is somehow justified to say that, yeah, this is not my problem, this is a general problem, and I cannot, as an individual, perceive my own capacities. Therefore, the problem lies in the whole system, I guess. So, yeah, it is always, if it isn't understood, sarcasm, it is always strange to see that this sort of tradition is upheld so much. It is sadly, yeah, I guess so. It is the reality of the present world. So many people have somehow bought into this way of perceiving the world that it seems like it is, so to speak, a necessity to buy into that yourself, I guess, or an external way of observing why it happens. It is quite obvious. Any human wishes to fit in with the rest of the society, it will be quite counterproductive to try and say that, no, yeah, I don't stand by the norm and by what everyone else also perceives. I somehow find myself fighting against this sort of idea and whatnot, or yeah, being distant from this very same type of concept, which could very much be useful for everybody. I needed to go with the current and nothing else shall be even tried if I ever wanted to achieve any sort of purposeful entertainment, so to speak, or yeah, so to speak, basically something like that. Because that is kind of a later discovery, a continuation of an idea that somehow you realize it didn't really serve anything to be so negative. It didn't truly benefit any part of the whole to be so centered only in the bad aspects of being alive and whatnot. It's quite a bad thing, so to speak, to be so centered in everything else that has nothing to deal with the main goal that could be perceived by any human being. So yeah, it's quite a. I guess it is indeed sad. There isn't truly another way to classify it. It is indeed sad because in the end, it simply means people are alienating themselves, so to speak, from what they wish the most. And that is where unavoidably we are losing. To see that people are not even capable of working on their dreams just because somebody says something bad once. That's enough to give up, I guess. So yeah, um, this sort of tradition is, in general, something hard to properly consider and properly try to discuss even. But yeah, give me a second. I want to drink water. I had been at this point, I think, talking for like 40 minutes. Let me drink some water. Very much. Thank you. Okay. Uh, we are so back. Hydration is so useful. Wow. Anyways, we left properly trying to reconstruct. We left simply on the idea of the individual has the capacity to perform any particular task that they wish. This is important. Why? Because in general, in the present world, due to different reasons, it has happened that any individual has somehow lost the capacity to perceive such a reality in order to allow a different narrative which somehow not only invalidates the individual itself but also justifies many other problems which end up unavoidably leading to problems in the whole way in which people arrange themselves, so to speak. Translating all of this into a different language, it will be most people have the very same capacities to achieve things, and the only problem is, sadly, if you want to blame anything, you can say society has created a way in which people themselves cannot truly aspire towards any real goal that they have. It has become the reality, the norm, that people seem to be struggling so much with, in any degree, I guess, wishing or working towards what they see as a beneficial achievement to have, just because there is an already existing tradition, sadly, of, yeah, personally, as everyone else struggles, I might as well also struggle myself, so to speak. That is the quickest explanation that can be given so far about all of this And once again, so to speak, that is simply the beginning of this. That isn't the reality, that isn't what we are going to live with. That isn't the point of this discussion. Just to end it there and say, oh yeah, you know what? The problem is society. Wow, we just found what we need to blame, nothing else. Surprising, incredible discussion. We have accomplished so much. We have yet again put the blame on this a completely invisible structure which literally doesn't exist, which has in reality no way of being measured properly. Society, wow, yeah, deep. Hashtag deep. Anyways, sorry, I I might have gone a little bit too into the sarcastic side. Yeah, continuing. The point is, it has been already explained, or not truly explained, that is introduced simply. We have, in general, the capacity to achieve the very same things which any other human can, as long as we can realize which different tools they have utilized to achieve those goals for them, and which kind of tools we can try to utilize if we don't possess the very same tools for ourselves. What does this mean? Would it be something along the lines of most of the time people have the beautiful gift of you can indeed work and accomplish the very same things which others already did in the past, so to speak, simply because you are given the possibility of observing how it is that they achieved anything by themselves. Why is this important? It is very much until that point nothing new still. Why is this important? How can you extrapolate this from simply saying, yeah, 1 plus 1 is 2? That is nothing new. Because there is something funny. There is something incredibly funny, at the very least for me, when observing this, that happened to be in the present world. There is a problem. There is quite a huge problem. There happened at some point. I don't even wish to play this blame game. At some point, it happened simply. The human lost the capacity to focus itself. Whichever kind of reason you want to justify or utilize as the main blame taker, so to speak, you can do it. I am not playing that game. I'm simply saying somehow it happens that people can't focus themselves so much on stuff. And within that problem, it lies the reality of why people can't. To a certain extent, it doesn't fully solve the problem. To a certain extent, realize why you can't accomplish the things that happen. It isn't the response itself, it isn't in any way the only one thing which will solve anybody's life, so to speak. Being more patient won't, I guess, obviously, won't make you suffer less the anger that you are having in the present. Quite on the contrary, if you have a terminal disease, Or if you have a disease that could become the future terminal, being patient about it and not taking action wouldn't mean in any way something good. Patience isn't a virtue, it is simply a requirement for, in this case, a skill that can be used later on in life in many different ways. And in this case, we are simply proposing one which seems to be useful. We are not even sure if it is useful. We're only trying to discuss and try to perceive how it could be called to any degree useful. So, continuing with that, it happens that most of the time people are given the possibility of working on things, and people are also moved, so to speak, going down instead of talking so much about the general, the individual. The individual is given the possibility of working on the different things which it wishes to accomplish. And why it is important? Because many many times it happens that what we wish for is something that could very well be accomplished, but we have decided to discard it simply because we lack, and here it is where, as I said before, patience is needed, simply because we decided to rush into the conclusion of it isn't for me, simply because I didn't take out the time out of my day, out of my life, to properly analyze if the different things which might lead to a satisfaction of my desires and obviously on a deeper level the accomplishment of the different goals which I can see could be useful for the whole system in which I live. I didn't take the time to properly observe how it can be performed, this one activity. In an individual level, there is a lack of responsibility, and this can't be shielded. You can try to say it in different ways, but the point remains the same. We have changed so much in the present that we have lost the capacity to recognize that it is an obligation for you to properly observe how others try to achieve what you are aspiring towards and try to recreate in any conscious way what happened before. Not because it is good simply to observe others and to take lessons. It isn't about, oh wow, just because I'm going to spend, let's say, just because I have watched 10,000 hours of TV, now I understand how to be a TV reporter. No, it is the conscious effort of trying to measure, understand, and properly play with in reality with all of those concepts that make up this whole idea of, in this case, being a TV reporter, that I can properly say how it is that I have personally found any degree of satisfaction from trying that very same thing myself. It doesn't happen regularly that people try in any manner to have something of this sort by themselves. Because once again, the capacity to have patience and to cultivate oneself towards the pursuit of all of these goals end up being lost in the way, in some part of the way, by different environmental situations which alter the individual's perception and make them believe that somehow you don't require to watch. There is nothing better than to consciously observe and take information from the outside, work with that on the inner fields of the imagination. There is nothing as beautiful as being capable of thinking by yourself, for yourself, and for the sake of your goals, what you truly wish to achieve, and to be capable of picturing in your own mind the many different ways in which it might fail or go well, not because you're going to spend an eternity on your mind playing with ideas, but rather because you don't need to sacrifice so much of yourself in the reality. The more you can extract from reality onto your mind the different constitutory parts of what you are trying to observe, the more you realize that indeed there was a huge possibility of obtaining what you wished for, because the different ways in which something gets achieved are indeed not so distant from your capacities, or not at all somehow removed from what you yourself can accomplish. This is, so to speak, something that you gain only when you can properly measure, and only when you can properly try your best in any kind of field and in any kind of manner about something that does allow the creation and the usage of all the previously accumulated time watching. Simple as that. Time having watched, processed, and properly concluded as many things as it was capable yourself of achieving in any particular field. The funny thing that, and that's what I hate the most, in any particular field, you can try to make 1,000 different arguments. It doesn't matter what somebody with a negative view on the world tries to say. Reality has shown already in any one field in which somebody applies themselves hard enough, the human has the innate capacity to achieve what they have proposed themselves to do. And that's the end of the discussion itself. There is nothing else to add. There is nothing else which can be said in any meaningful way. You can try to argue 1,000 different ways with 1,000 different counterpoints about how different problems might arise and whatnot. Reality is, those who can wish and work hard enough towards what they desire will be capable of obtaining what they want. And this isn't a promise or a hope, a kind of prayer. This is the reality itself, which has been solidified through the observation of enough previous examples. One of the most fundamental things about this principle is people are not so alienated by the outside. The problem exists, and that's, I said it before, talking about something like this is hard because people by themselves already have a problem when it comes to, and you're letting the outside affect too much of what you're even considering a necessity, what you are believing to be your capacities and whatnot. You're letting too much of the outside in any degree have an influence on what you can truly be, when it has no need to be that way. You have no obligation whatsoever of being so much persuaded by things which have no true influence on yourself. It has been one of the biggest losses of the century, so to speak, that out of nowhere, the generic human being exists so much in a world in which they are persuaded by things which have removed from them this capacity, and it doesn't even come from a place of malice. There is that is a deeper observation that anybody can realize, can perform, so to speak. If you try to find out where it comes, it is simply from the reality of those who failed before you are simply struggling now with their dreams in such a way that somehow there would be no better play to do in this case than to try and blame those who are in the present in order to simply try and see if doing something like that would assist. It is, yeah, we have an aversion towards this word, yet somehow it is sadly the reality. The cynical nature of the modern world has permeated too much what is the nature of the human being, so to speak. You can try to argue it in different ways. The reality is no. Sadly, we are overly cynical. We are overly negative about many things. And we accept that as a part of our coding, so to speak, as a part of how we think, how we enact the different parts of our life, how we move ourselves in the world. It is in us something good to be destroyed by all of those things somehow. So it is almost like a requisite to also be like that and to also be moved by those things instead of trying in any meaningful way to be a person which doesn't find themselves to be alienated by the same problems. I think we have already started to divert from the point the moment in which I started to talk about all of this, but I think the reality is sadly the shared pain of doing something like this might as well be one of the most satisfactory things of life in the present because we exist in an era in which we are so free to do an infinite amount of things that it is such an impossibility to choose any single one of them that it is better to keep complaining with others about how hard it is to live in this world and how horrible it is to try and do anything because it seems that it takes so much effort and whatnot. It is this constant, I said it before, this constant wailing and this constant complaining feels fulfilling more than truly doing anything because the moment in which you do something, not only are you confronted by the mistakes that you allowed in the past of believing that you weren't capable of that, but also you start to lose your place in the very same society which creates such a message and which makes it so obvious that all of this is in no other way a negative way to refer to the world, so to speak. It isn't something that truly solves anybody's life. It is just a manner in which we try to talk about things and we find ourselves struggling more and more because at the end of the day, the moment in which you don't have a hope, you're accepted by the world. The moment in which you have a hope, you're rejected by the world. And the moment in which you try to tell others that it is fine to have a hope, you're also rejected by the world. As at the very same time, the moment in which you tell others that it is fine to not have any kind of dream, you are seen as some kind of savior of the modernity, so to speak. That's where all of these problems lie. They don't need to be that deeply observed, but once again, we're not ready for that kind of discussion in any way. It's it's better to not blame society for its own problems. It's, so to speak, something quite funny about observing all of this is you realize the moment in which you can externalize enough the problem, it stops being part of society somehow. It isn't like, yeah, this is an inner dragon, this is an inner situation which exists inside of society, which has been created by society. No, no, no. This is a problem which comes from a deeper root. This is something that an evil being created completely outside of ourselves. This is an evil force working. Not no. This can't be the human being. The human being can be this naive, can be this completely cynical. No, 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 no. This comes from the outside, you know? This comes from something completely removed from what is our own nature. So, yeah, continuing, or trying to continue. Well, reality is, yeah, I think so. I think at the very least accepting that isn't bad. It is quite fucking tiresome to talk so much and to try and properly string together ideas like this. Let me drink some water, thank you. Anyways, we were on, I think it was around, yeah, around the idea itself. We simply left on the point of we don't truly have that many problems and we are not truly impeded that much by different negative things. As we try to say that we are, the sad reality, I guess, is yeah, we are not that removed from a better world. Nobody is indeed that incapable of achieving what they wish. And sadly, the different mechanisms which we have allowed to exist in our present life make it so that we are between forced and enabled, so to speak, to keep on justifying things in this very same negative manner. And the problem lies in that isn't the reality itself. The reality itself shows you quite heavily that it very much works the other way around. Pretty much all of the time, people have the gift of working on what they wish and doing what they want as long as they are capable of focusing themselves. Sadly, so to speak, the moment in which you analyze the world, you see that even in the harshest of the conditions, even with the worst of the problems, those who can apply themselves hard enough, no matter how many setbacks have existed, accomplish what they propose themselves to. Albeit, and here it is the part of the yeah and or no but albeit obviously sadly, and that is a part of being somebody who dreams anything, albeit without a complete rate of execution, without a 100% accuracy when it comes to what you truly want. Because, sadly, most people, the moment in which you start to realize that you have capacities, you also have quite a hard mis yeah, not mistake. That is part of the adventure of hoping anything, that you keep on hoping better things. You have a hard task at hand, so to speak. You need to balance the visions of a better future that you start to have about things which might not come never, because they are, even in the most ideal of the scenarios, you don't have enough resources to achieve what you wish to. So to speak, it seems very much like a contradiction, but it needs to be properly addressed because it is the reality. The moment in which people have proper capacities start to work on their problems, they realize that it can be achieved what they wish for. But at the very same time, it also happens that those who wish for things are bound not only by their expectations but also by their capacities to keep on imagining even better things to come, to keep on moving themselves onto multiple better futures in which things go certainly the right way. And this is something hard, not because by default people are bound to have problems, but rather because by default, most of the time, those who are fighting with, or yeah, the reality will be those who are fighting for what they truly wish for have to also fight against themselves, the desire to keep on only imagining what they wish could happen with their efforts. And this degree of problems isn't so apparent until you realize that this also permeates, so to speak, the way in which they perceive their accomplishments. That's where I was trying to go with all of this. That sadly, those who accomplish many things cannot accomplish fulfillment for said things, paradoxically speaking, because once you realize that you can achieve something, you don't find the satisfaction in simply knowing that you can do it. Even in the most biological sense of the word, so to speak, even if you know that you have a way to get pleasure every single time, you don't get fulfillment from knowing that. You need to pursue properly the thing which gives you pleasure, and you need to properly execute, so to speak, the pinnacle of that satisfaction. And there is no other way but in action than to do that. So to speak, the people who dream can't ever be satisfied with their dreams. But the problem is they have already accomplished what happened in the past, or even obviously what is happening in the present. Therefore, they don't feel the satisfaction of fulfilling, so to speak, a dream that much. Even if you hear somebody say something along the lines of, I got to accomplish my personal dream, that is also something that later on people realizes. No matter how hard I try to say that I enjoyed this one thing, in the end, I didn't fully feel that much because of that. It wasn't that life changing, life altering, or truly in any way meaningful. It isn't. It isn't in any manner something fully surprising or yeah, truly astonishing. But sadly, at the very same time, sadly, it is still part of this whole discussion, which is excluded from it because it is bad to tell people that the moment in which you have an expectation, you're going to be defrauded by the realization of this very same thing which you say so much that you want to accomplish. Because then you're going to find out that not only did you get what you wanted, but also you got more desires from what you wanted, born out of that achievement, so to speak. And yeah, well, this is kind of a good break point. So far, we have only discussed pretty much how it works in a very slow manner. It also is. I guess it takes more time more than anything else, because as I said before, proper explanation of things can happen. That personally somebody doesn't take their time out of their day to do it doesn't mean that it can't happen. So I guess I we would have been a lot farther into this discussion, but yeah, we still have like 1 hour left. I think so. The problem is, energetically speaking, I don't have an hour left on me. I I never discussed myself why it is so incredibly hard to sustain any of this in any meaningful manner. I guess it it happens even that with time and whatnot, all of this stuff has truly become quite hard for anybody, I guess, who tries to do something like this to sustain. Because properly saying something meaningful beyond the point of, oh wow, what I am saying is meaningful or not, beyond the point of self doubt, properly structuring things to feel useful, even for oneself, is hard. So yeah, it is quite a constant struggle to say whatever, and it unavoidably is the same thing here. I mean, yeah, there is literally no other thing to say in all of this field than to simply accept that, yeah, indeed, all of this is by nature a hard thing to sustain and whatnot, and all of this is by default an experience which takes time, so to speak. So, I guess simply patience. Once again, I have already mentioned enough about that. I don't think I need to reiterate myself. Sadly, we lack patience. So, yeah, please cultivate your patience a little bit as I try to get to any better, deeper point than what I already did before. Because that I can promise that there is a point in which this gets better, or even better if it is already good somehow. What I am saying, it gets even better. But yeah, anyways, also, before continuing, I didn't get to discuss all of this before transition. Let me see. Because there was something quite funny that happened in all of these collabs that we had been doing with people. That was, I found out something funny. I can somehow not have at all some resources on one end of the screen, while on the other, I can have them, so to speak. Okay, Twitch, very nerdy Twitch stuff. I can have on one end the studio mode. I can have on the part in which I alter stuff, things, but I can also remove them and only have them showing on the stream. And it works perfectly fine, and somehow it consumes less resources than before. And as I was thinking about that, yeah, indeed, I can do the very same thing here with the subtitles, it seems. I don't know why it happens. Supposedly, yeah, I guess OBS says using studio mode doesn't consume more resources. Parentheses. If your PC is good enough, it doesn't consume more resources, because it seems that for mine, it obviously does. Anyway, the point was, there we go. We have subtitles. I also get a little bit anxious if there is literally nothing going on screen. Beyond the point of, yeah, have patience and whatnot. ADHD, my beloved, I need something to toy with. A fidget of some kind is required. So yeah, there we go. Subtitles seem to be back on the menu. Uh, Albeit in a very strange way, I guess. I didn't expect that to work in this way. But yeah, also, even with subtitles, it doesn't make anything of what I say more understandable to a certain degree. And yeah, in the final analysis, it is even counterproductive because sadly, the subtitles are inaccurate as fuck. So yeah, uh, it's quite a hard thing to have them enabled and whatnot. But at the very least, yeah, I have been trying to monitor all of this so far. It seems to work. Somehow it seems to work. So I don't have to worry that much anymore about them. Uh, it seems to work. What? I don't know. I guess I simply don't know. It. What's the motto? It just works. It just works. Ah. Anyways, completely. Anyways, because there tried to be a real point here. We were continuing discussing on how somebody, in general, the proper point is not about a particular somebody. Any singular person can understand how to apply themselves to efforts and whatnot. How can this be achieved in a meaningful manner? And how can this be utilized in a proper manner in order to allow for a proper experience and adventure when it comes to realizing what one wishes to and what anybody has, to any degree, aspired to accomplish, so to speak. This is indeed, I don't think it is that deep to say that it is indeed a necessity to try and discuss anything of this sort, because partially, or commonly speaking, no matter what, no matter what, people like that have already realized it takes effort. The problem is in which parole, in which kind of way, that's the way to say it, in which kind of way anything takes effort. If we are being clear here, there is no true point in which anybody can be fully sure about themselves. There is no manner in which anybody could fully measure how properly they are utilizing their efforts and whatnot. There is a certain paradox, so to speak. Not, I think this one isn't properly named, but there is an observable occurrence that is you can't fully be sure about what you are doing. But the more you simply keep trying what you want to, the more you will be given the opportunity to accomplish what you are working towards. As long as you have, and this is what I mentioned before, as long as you have observed people who have tried the very same thing as you and learned from them. The problem here, okay, there is certainly a problem when being overly general and when being overly naive, so to speak, when it comes to defining what truly is observing and how can anybody observe their different peers in the different fields of, yeah, of experience and whatnot, because there happens that we pretty much have a situation in between our hands when it comes to realizing that sadly, no matter what you try, sometimes simply watching doesn't solve anything. I mentioned that before. Actively watching is what rewards the observer. Actively learning from what you are watching is what allows you to later on perform in an equally or even better field than those who you have analyzed. And because I don't even know why it kind of got transformed into something bad, but the analysis of those who you are using as role models is a necessary step for anybody who tries to accomplish anything. Also, I am having literally problems. Yeah, please, 1 second. Okay, we're back. Wow, surprising. No, it wasn't really anything. It was simply I had to sneeze, and afterwards, I had to deal with the problems of sneezing. Anyways, realities. I think I left around the problem. The problem of talking about analysis and whatnot. Somehow it has become, instead of the many problems of the modernity, it also happened that it has been demonized in the present. The observation of anything deeply, and the usage of a word like analysis itself has become something kind of taboo because no, yeah, I don't even have a proper reason. I think it comes because at a certain point, people had a tendency to categorize judgment of as analysis. That might as well be one of the best justifiers as to why it morphed into what we have nowadays. I guess I don't even have a proper, once again, I don't have a proper excuse for any of this. It simply happens that people have somehow demonized the usage of a word like that. You are quite obligated, so to speak. If you want to accomplish anything, you need to properly observe what has happened around you. Because without that very same observation, you can't come to any kind of conclusion out of nowhere. It won't happen that one day you will simply bloom into a better version of yourself and whatnot, purely because you tried and you reached an understanding about this matter and whatnot. You need to try your best, and you need to pretty much obviously be capable of expressing what you wanted in a meaningful manner. And to a certain degree, yeah, I think that is the most obvious of the examples which we ignore. Kids themselves, infants, are constantly analyzing their whole surrounding. It shows you, a literal child shows you that without observation of what is around you, there is no way for you to get any kind of proper understanding out of what you wish. And this is obviously being applied to your efforts and whatnot. It is more so, I think it is quite obvious to assume that it is quite impossible for anybody to accomplish any kind of dream if you don't take out the time to properly analyze what was done by those who came before you, and not because you are simply going to spend hours of your day watching and consuming what happened. Once again, analysis is born out of conscious observation with the intent of extracting as many different points about why somebody is doing the different things that they do, the different ways that they are doing so, and trying to extrapolate that, in this case, into actionable steps that you can later on follow. It isn't in any way something new, but somehow it becomes a new definition in the present world because the judgment about the simple usage of a word, of a word like it is to think about analyzing things and such is indeed a problem and has become something somehow truly demonized when it never needed to be that way. It is a loss in many different, yeah, in many different levels of reality to accept that just because at some point society decided to demonize this kind of terminology, you don't deserve to work on it like it was truly intended to be. It is pretty much, and I think, yeah, that is kind of the final point of this, but it also at the very same time is interrelated with that. An abandonment of responsibility is sadly one of the biggest reasons as to why something like this is created in the present world. Sadly, you don't have the possibility of observing anything by yourself, and out of nowhere, reaching such divinatory conclusions completely out of nowhere. We, in the modern world, so to speak, it has already been shown the path forward in almost any imaginable already existent field. And what does this mean is you only need to observe and to properly analyze what was performed by others in order to properly get a picture as to where is it that your efforts need to go. I think for the last 10 minutes, I haven't said anything new at all. But indeed, it is as simple as that, as the ones who can properly have, once again, patience, formulate a proper picture based on the analysis of the previous ones, and moved in accordance to that picture, will achieve what they want. And why is this important? Why is this in any degree in alignment with the idea of, oh yeah, human efforts and whatnot? Because without trying, yeah, without the interest to have something of this sort, without the possibility of realizing that something of this nature is needed, and without the interest to in any acceptable degree, see it as a possibility, all of this, no person can properly by themselves achieve all of the different things that happen. And no matter how huge your efforts are as an individual, the different conditions which affect your goal might get so much against what you truly wish that by yourself there will be no way to accomplish what you say you want so much. Sadly, and that is one of the worst things of this reality, this message has been somehow lost or transfigured into something that makes it look like, yeah, only those who study so much and only those who, let's say, spend 1,000 hours doing, or 10,000 hours, or 100,000 hours doing this one activity will achieve success on that particular field. No, the act of consciously and willingly performing different activities is what allows you to achieve what you wish. It doesn't happen out of nowhere, and it doesn't appear as a success created out of a whimsical effort, so to speak. No, no. Depending obviously on which kind of habit, kind of field you're playing and you're placing yourself in, there are obviously going to be examples of people who never even meant to try hard and just found out that they had the possibility of accomplishing this one thing simply because at some point or another they had a wish to try and they found out that they could. Wow, nothing new. Absolutely nothing new. The reality is, when we are talking about true efforts, when we are talking about true situations which require intent, that's where you find that no matter how lucky you think some people are, there won't be a savior who will out of nowhere say, for example, oh yeah, I just stumbled upon a formula that is capable of solving world world hunger. It doesn't happen that way. People don't discover life altering changes that will literally modify the world itself in irreparable ways by accident to that degree in the present. Once again, we are not living anymore in the past, in the ancient era in which people had the fortune of yeah, I am going to leave this one bacteria over this this one thing, and I am going to not do anything about it for like a week. And when I come back, I will find out, or I will have found out, that somehow this bacteria seems to kill every other bacteria. Somehow. No, it doesn't happen like that in the present. You can make an argument for other things like that, once again, from the past. We don't live in such a society like that anymore. I guess sadly, I guess luckily, because it means also it is ensured for those who try that they will accomplish what they want. It won't appear out of nowhere for those who never even attempted anything to achieve success on things. It will never be a possibility for anybody who never even puts their mind onto what they wish to achieve success. It won't be a possibility that people like that will appear out of nowhere, so to speak. It doesn't work that way. But yeah, I guess that is kind of to stop. Not because, uh, yeah, not because we have to stop here. I need to stop here. That's why. It's because I need to stop here. I need to take a second and go do something, so to speak. So give me like a tiny, minuscule idle break. Thank you very much. So yeah, give me, I don't know, give me probably like 1 minute or so. Also, mute myself. Anyways, we are so back on the. Uh, let me let me remove yet again this stuff. It's yeah. I don't understand how this works at all. Why? By removing them, my PC doesn't crash. I guess that's how it works basically. But yeah, thank you very much. Continuing, I I kind of lost the train of thought. Partially because obviously I was we had been here almost 2 hours. Normally I didn't even know. It used to go for 2 hours long, so That's already quite a lot. And it has been quite a. Yeah, no. The point is excuses. I don't care about excuses. The reality is I lost every train of thought. That's what matters. I was around, I think. Why? Yeah. Why observing? Well, that's to one degree. Why observing anything might be minimally beneficial, that is the obvious thing. But also why, to any other degree, it can happen very much that people have the possibility of. Okay, yeah. Accomplishing what they wish based on this very same model in the present world, compared also how all of this worked in the past and whatnot. Okay, this is kind of trying to remake the argument. This is in any degree a necessity, something important, something useful, because it simply is talking about the nature of how, in many ways, all of this goes around. I I I know that certainly in this very brief time and without the without the existence of any particular clear example, sadly there is no way for us to understand or be completely sure that what I am saying is the way it is. Um, I think so. I hope so, very much, that it can be argued properly by somebody without the need of examples, but the examples themselves very much illustrate why anybody can accomplish the different things which they propose themselves. That's quite the whole point of this discussion to a certain extent, because people seem to overestimate how necessary it is in many different degrees to try anything, and how impossible different fields of life are, so to speak, just because they had one or two bad experiences. But based on the very some examples which I never talked about, it seems very much to indicate life so far that, quite on the contrary, those who can properly take time out of their life, so to speak, in order to apply themselves to this field of things, have higher and higher capacities. And obviously, on a deeper analysis, there are some problems which lie within trying so hard for something. That is obviously the sunken cost fallacy, the idea of how much, to a certain degree or not, is anybody willing to realize that they also have rusted, so to speak, and that they have lost the capacity to be as good as they used to be in the past. There are a lot of different problems in that sense. But on the other hand, it doesn't truly mean that anybody can't achieve what they wish for, or that, yeah, they don't have in their hands the possibility of performing something transformative and something truly useful. It is, I guess, sadly, for those who like to be very cynical, it is the reality that most of the problems which exist in the present could be solved. And that is, I guess, the problem of the idealists. That sadly, that's the truth, sadly. We don't have people working on them. Simple as that. We don't have people working on stuff that should be more pressing. That's why they are not being solved so far. That's kind of the worst part of this whole discussion. That sadly, the moment in which, yeah, moving on to the final part of this, the moment in which you understand this is the moment in which also you sadly are bestowed with the realization of, and sadly, many of the situations which haunt or present life could have been worked on and could have been in any degree solved. Somehow it seems that despite there being 7 billion human beings, nobody's interested in working on that. I think so, I guess, from a psychological standpoint, there is this thing where it is shown that the more people are observer of a certain situation, the less people are willing to involve themselves with that, because there is this feeling of, yeah, everybody should be willing to do something. And maybe if I am the one who does something, I am going to fail in trying that. So, in the biggest sense of the picture, it will make sense that no human being feels the necessity to try and solve such problems, so to speak. Like, I mean, yeah, it pretty much, from that sense, it is quite understandable that out of nowhere, nobody wants to try and work themselves to death, basically, with things like world, world peace, or solving hunger, or removing from the world, I don't know, poverty, whatever kind of ideal you're trying to propose. It is quite understandable that out of nowhere, nobody tries to pursue something so incredibly vague at the same time. But I don't think, to any degree, it fully justifies not taking action. I mean, once again, or in this case, I say it for my case, in this case, it should be pretty evident. Those are only excuses. It doesn't mean that because nobody else is willing to take action, you can also satisfy your interest on a certain problem and discard it altogether and say, yeah, you know what? Fuck humanity. It doesn't work that way. But I guess, sadly, one of the wonderful things about modernity, once again, it somehow has become a staple upon the human that, yeah, you don't need to be that responsible. You don't need to have any kind of responsibility whatsoever. So, why even bother trying to care about any of this? Why even care? Why even use your time in such a meaningless way? There are many other things which could be more satisfying than a problem which could probably, we are not even sure, because we have literally never even tried. But it might as well be a problem that never gets solved. So, you know what? Don't try. Why would you try if there is a risk of failure? That's that's pretty much one of the funniest things also in all of that. Seeing out of nowhere that the narrative doesn't even come from somebody with experience on the topic. The biggest and most negative of the arguments are commonly never made by people who tried to do anything like that. I mean, I guess the best kind of counter argument, or the less infected by something like that, is, yeah, you can't make the entire world happy, but at the very same time, it comes from saded and cynical people who were negated since they were children, basically, the possibility of being happy. At the very same time, it does seem like, yeah, on one hand, you have some reasons to truly say something like that and be on the right. On one hand, on the other, it doesn't mean that you are right, and it doesn't. Your previous experience was that of a child when you quote unquote wanted to make the entire world happy. maybe you are not qualified to talk anything about this problem. Maybe, yeah, I guess that's that's one of the funny things of the present world. Also, people are entitled to their own opinions, and somehow it is bad to say, but they are not entitled to share them with everyone else. That's a very funny way of cultivating conflict within people. Like, I guess that's being honest. It does feel like a very conflictive manner of observing the world and whatnot, because you realize that indeed people are arguing about the stupidest of the shit. Like, I don't care who the fuck wins something that literally has nothing to deal with true problems. I don't care about which one particular mode of entertainment is the latest one. Can we properly talk about situations which are literally killing people? Can we try to spend some time on that? And I mean, properly utilize some time in trying to solve them, not in, oh yeah, let's go. Time to enjoy some overly grotesque media, nothing else. Wow. No, I am talking about properly doing something. I am trying to talk about properly caring about anything at all. Yet somehow it happens that, no, everybody has the right to say whatever the fuck they want. Therefore, you also have the right to say whatever kind of stupid shit that contributes to no one you want. And you're entitled to do so. And you're entitled to fight against other people because of what you said. Yeah, we are so good because of that. It's one of the most productive things, even. It is to see people getting angry. I mean, sadly, sadly, we don't live in a world like Monsters Inc., where you can have people simply scream, cry, and whatnot, and gain energy from that. Because if not, we will have min-maxed the shit out of that system at this point, probably. It is so funny to see that we do it simply because of an entertainment. We don't even have it because it is a need to discuss. No, 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 no. It became kind of an sport to go online and say the most stupid stuff that you can. And also, not only to say it, but to defend what you are saying. Like, at some point it became, no, yeah, you know what? You're completely what you're saying. You needed to spend your whole life defending this one thing that literally affects nobody in no meaningful way. You need to do it. It is going to be rewarding. How to not have problems when trying to discuss about shit of this sort? Trying to talk about how to minimally put your efforts in something usefully and realize that what you can accomplish is possible and is indeed a reality and not simply an aspiration that might as well never become true. How can you even try to discuss something like that is on if, on the other hand, what gets commonly preached is, yeah, you know what? Time to spend your whole time, your whole life, on stuff that affects no one, that changes nothing, that alters life in no meaningful way. You know what? And I guess on the other hand, because that is true also, I going on this tangent, I remember it was properly explained, and it didn't like, oh yeah, I only want deeper discussions. No, People are not ready for that. Like, most people are not capable of handling one. Most, in general, nobody is fully capable of having a completely deep discussion because you need to have so much knowledge, which nowadays is so scarce that it doesn't happen. You can sit with somebody else and go on for hours and hours about different truly interesting ideas because people are not educated in any way. People never took care of themselves to try and learn about stuff. People, even those who seem to be educated in some manner, are truly, the moment in which you have the possibility of talking with them, truly lacking of anything interesting. And even those who you admire the most have nothing which truly fulfills your own perspective with something new, with something that can let it grow into an even better state. People say that they hate small talk and what or not, but the reality is, nah, if you didn't know how to have something like that, if you didn't want to have anything like that, you would have removed yourself from society long time ago. And those who did so, even those don't even know how to have properly deep conversations because it isn't, once again, problems of the educational system, because it isn't in any manner taught. Nobody even tried to take time out of their day to teach people how to try and properly direct a conversation in the hopes of reaching any useful conclusion. Nobody even tries to measure anything like that. Nobody tries to think or properly have any kind of hope in all of those things. It simply is not a miracle, even it is like a random event that might happen, might not happen, that somebody cares, that somebody doesn't care. And I, I, I don't know, man. It's simply an observation, so to speak, at this point. The other one was indeed a proper presentation of an idea and whatnot. At this point, I am simply really going off, I guess. I don't have that much more to say, so yeah. I am I am satisfied at the very least today. So yeah, no, I don't think I have extra things to add. I I think, let's say it this way, being concise with a message is better than to be incredibly widespread. On yeah, that's a very funny idea that somehow trying to be as broad as you can with the things that you say will somehow truly affect you in a beneficial way. No, you're being lazy with what you're saying. And you already know that it isn't like a revelation. You're not putting proper efforts into what you're saying to be concise. But now somehow it is fault of everyone else that you're not being precise. I guess so. Anyways. Uh, anyways. Nothing else to really add. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for lurking. Thank you for watching the VOD. It has been a very fantastic day. Yeah, I needed to get a little bit of that autistic energy that I had accumulated out, I guess. Well, no, tomorrow, no. It won't happen. Tomorrow, I literally want to be awake at this hour because tonight we have a stream, so yeah. At the very least, I was capable of streaming before the stream itself of tonight. So yeah, I am satisfied with that. Anyways, as always, thanks for everything. Thanks for watching. Thanks for lurking. Take care. Be happy. Be in pursuit of something meaningful. And yeah, have a nice one. Probably, I don't fucking know when, because next week I also. Today we are. It is November 23, 2024. Next week, as in today, it is Friday? What? Saturday. Today is Saturday. So, in 2 days, starting from today, I have a new week, and in that week, I also have a shit ton of final exams, so I have to get ready for them. I don't think I will stream. Probably I will try to sneak at the very least one. But yeah, anyway, take care. And yeah, do something useful. You literally can. Later on, you create excuses to not accept the reality that you can accomplish something great. But that is not my problem. I try to explain it at the very least today, how to view it as much as anybody can. So yeah, thank you and have a good one. Goodbye.